Nintendo has published yet another ad for Tears of the Kingdom that has actually given us a bit more details on the game, including some new footage on the Master Sword. So what do these details suggest, and what's going on with the Master Sword? We've seen the Master Sword in so many different states throughout all of the footage for Tears of the Kingdom. Well, that's what we're talking about today.
Hey, listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and this time we're going to be talking about another ad that Nintendo provided us that gives us more understanding of what's going on with the Master Sword, along with a few other details. But before we jump into things, let me point out that we are aiming to hit 25,000 subscribers by the time Tears of the Kingdom comes out on May 12th. So if you enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit that notification bell, because then we might just make it. So taking a look at this ad, we'll just focus on the non-Master Sword related scenes first. Most of the scenes in this ad are basically from prior trailers. There's nothing significant here, but a few couple things. We get a slightly extended look of the different enemies that are being powered up by the Malice, but also we see that scene where Link has the two batteries on the flying vehicle, but we can see that one of the batteries is totally exhausted. So if there was ever any doubt that the battery was draining, we now have pretty concrete proof that it has. Not only have we seen it going down in prior footage, but this time it's completely empty. We also see this scene here where we can see one of the monster chests from Breath of the Wild. So basically, if there's any concern about not receiving rewards for beating bokoblin camps, that mechanic seems to have returned, so there you go. But now on to perhaps the biggest piece of footage that was shown, and that is a better look at Link in Korok Forest with the Master Sword. Now, when we saw a bit of this scene in the last big official trailer, some were arguing that this might even be a scene from Breath of the Wild, and they just put it in there to show the history of the Master Sword. But thanks to this recent footage, that doesn't look to be the case. So in this scene here, it looks like Link is putting the Master Sword into his sheath, but what you'll notice is that he has the same sort of armored gear we've seen throughout the different footage for Tears of the Kingdom when he's wearing the champion's tunic. And this is important to note because in Breath of the Wild, while Link did have the champion's tunic, that blue, longer kind of looking shirt, it didn't have the armor on top. But now it does. So this does suggest that this is more likely taking place throughout the events of Tears of the Kingdom. There's also been some discussion on whether Link's hair is a bit longer. I don't think it's anything substantial. It might be marginally longer. When we take a look at Link's ponytail in Breath of the Wild, it goes down to around the Triforce area, and it seems to be pretty comparable here. So if it is longer, we're talking about like an inch or two at best. It's nothing significant. Regardless though, this is a Tears of the Kingdom scene. This isn't a scene taken from a Breath of the Wild trailer or anything like that. So then, with that in mind, what does it suggest? Well, it becomes a bit perplexing because we've seen footage where Zelda's holding the destroyed Master Sword, but then we've also seen footage where Link has the destroyed Master Sword, and then we also have this footage here where the Master Sword is totally fine. So what's going on with the Master Sword? Well, what I think is going on is that the beginning of the game, which Nintendo has confirmed takes place in the Sky Islands, which supports my theory that when we see Link and Zelda exploring the underground and they meet up with the now confirmed corpse of Ganondorf that comes back to life, that whole situation is the inciting incident for Tears of the Kingdom. That leads to the upheaval. We've seen that corpse from prior footage shooting Malice into the air, suggesting maybe that leads to the Sky Islands coming down and all the havoc breaks loose and Zelda falls down a hole and she ends up elsewhere, maybe in a different time. There's some uncertainty there, but she's definitely not somewhere where Link can just reach quite easily, because she does talk about how Link needs to find her, but based on what we've seen, it looks like she's somewhere near the Great Plateau, if not actually on it by the Temple of Time itself. Point being, there's separation there. So I think what happens is that Link and Ganondorf engage in battle. We see scenes where the Malice is taking over the Master Sword. We see it nearly destroyed. We see Link's hand burned or charred by the Malice from Ganondorf. And that leads to the sword breaking. We see footage, or rather we've seen this press release screenshot where Link is skydiving around these Sky Islands that we know to be the basic beginning of the game, and he has the Master Sword on his back, yet he doesn't have the full toga yet. I think this is a very, very early screenshot, and I think what happens is that Link has the Master Sword from early on. When he's saved in some way, he also has the destroyed Master Sword, but we also have some footage where Link is finally wearing the toga and doesn't have the vials on his hips, so I think that suggests that it's also an early on scene, and maybe this scene takes place pretty much towards the end of the beginning of Tears of the Kingdom, those Sky Islands, and maybe Link sends the destroyed Master Sword to whoever Zelda is, because we see that he's using recall. We see that Zelda has the recall tear. This recall symbol is on her, the tear that she holds in her hands, and there's a golden sort of light that he is interacting with in some way in this footage here. So I think there's somehow some teleportation or transferring of the Master Sword to Zelda, and that's why Zelda then has the broken Master Sword. That's my theory on it. I'm not sure how else it would make sense if Link has the Master Sword in the beginning and then Zelda also has Master Sword in the beginning. I think there's definitely a chain of events here, and what's exciting about this is that it suggests that, okay, there is actually story progression here. It's not just all in the past. Sort of. But when we take a look at this new scene with Link holding the Master Sword or sheathing the Master Sword in Korok Forest, this is quite perplexing, because not only do we know that this is the Link based off Tears of the Kingdom because of the armor on the Champion's Tunic that we do see in the beginning of the first teaser where Link and Zelda are exploring underground, but also you'll notice Link's hand is totally fine. So this is before the engagement with Ganondorf, where Link's hand was ruined. So I don't know if this is a flashback, but it's definitely before the events of Link and Zelda exploring the underground, in my opinion. The Master Sword is also not destroyed. This is what makes the most sense. I doubt Nintendo would share a scene from the end of the game where Link's hand is totally fine again and the Master Sword is totally fine again. It's possible it could be an endgame cutscene, but I doubt it. It also should be noted that Korok Forest is nowhere to be seen in Tears of the Kingdom. This footage here, the Master Sword being totally fine, is all we have on Korok Forest. I think the resurrection of Ganondorf leads to the upheaval that changes Hyrule, which also leads to Korok Forest disappearing or not being where it once was. Maybe it's still around somewhere, maybe underground, maybe in the skies, we're not sure, but it's not in the normal place anymore. So basically what I'm thinking is that there's actually going to be a lot of scenes that take place before the inciting incident of the game, because if we have this scene here where Link is sheathing the Master Sword in Korok Forest, that to me says that he's preparing for something. Maybe he didn't even have the Master Sword for a while during the peace between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but there was some reason to go on this journey that they thought it might be so dangerous that he would need the Master Sword, and that leads to the exploration of the underground where Link and Zelda find Mummy Ganondorf, and then everything sort of happens in terms of the events of Tears of the Kingdom. But with so much potentially going on at the beginning of the game that lead to Link waking up, while I don't want there to be a whole bunch of flashbacks, I think that it would be very challenging for them to have like a 10-minute opening cutscene without any gameplay, considering how quickly Breath of the Wild started. While I would kind of want that because I want to see everything in succession, I'm wondering if there's a major flashback here. But maybe it's not a flashback you have to unlock. Maybe there's some snippet of what happens, Link wakes up, and then towards the end of the beginning segment, we get a major flashback as to what happened, explaining everything. Regardless though, this new footage of the Master Sword, I believe, takes place before all the events that we've seen throughout Tears of the Kingdom, including Link and Zelda exploring the underground where they meet Ganondorf. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.